I learned in what you could call the traditional way.
Right.
I'm not denying the beauty of it, everything, but there was no thought in that sense. There was a lot of acceptance of what things are. My classroom is also a classroom which is an argumentative Indian classroom.
Yeah.
I don't teach only music. We discuss everything around it, everything beyond it, and we argue, we debate, we shout and scream if required.
Welcome. We're super excited to have you here. More importantly, having you at ISB seems a lot of fun more than anything else. So thank you for being here.
It's a lot of fun, I agree. Thanks, Vishal. Thank you so much. Thanks, Mridula.
No, absolutely. Very excited to welcome you to this conversation.
Thank you.
And I think we have quite a few topics that we really want to discuss with you.
Sure.
And yes, Vishal, do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, look, the first thing I want to understand is you've been here, what, a day and a half now?
Yeah.
How has it been so far?
I like the trick question. Okay, it's been incredible, but jokes apart, it's been actually wonderful. I had at least 2 formal interactions with students and 1 informal over dinner, and it's been great. It's. I think I always love academic settings, and I'm kind of made to enjoy that kind of a setting. And I really think that in many ways, the students that I met, and I do believe the younger generation in general, are engaged in a far more serious manner with so many ideas that I don't think we were at their age. And that's very evident in the questions that came up yesterday, for example, or post my conversation, the dinner conversation. So this morning, it was a wide range of conversations from, ethics to art to the world of management and to where they're headed in life. And so it was great. Yeah.
No, wonderful, wonderful. It's interesting. So something you said kind of caught my attention. You said you had a wide-ranging set of questions. And you also said you believe that the younger generation is more poignant than,
Yes.
what we were at least.
I think so.
What makes you say that?
Okay, what makes me say that is some of this is looking at ourselves when we were that age, okay, and looking at how did we view ourselves and society around us. And I mean this in the wide range that inferences that you can draw from that. And I don't believe we were engaged beyond our little circle of, working or getting somewhere. And they're all very ambitious young people. I'm not saying that's not there. At the same time, I think that they are seeing, they watch far more of the world around. Yes, I think technology has played a role in allowing that access, but you still have to make that effort. I mean, it's not going to, technology is not solving any problem anyway. It's human beings that have to, right? So, but I see them engage with issues that are beyond their little circle, or listen to voices that are beyond their little circle.
Right.
And these are all mainly very privileged children coming from clusters where you usually don't engage in that kind of conversation. So I think that's why I'm very positive about it. And they're sharp, they disagree very well, which is the best part of it. If they agree to everything you say, it's boring. And I think that there's a sensitivity which comes from this kind of openness.
Right.
And that's why I'm saying it's great to be with. I think fundamentally somewhere maybe I learned something out of it.
Very true.
And that's very true, because you say something and there is this little angle that'll come from the next generation, like, that's interesting. And then you go back thinking, okay, how does this fit into the entire conversation you're having or an idea that you're developing?
Right.
So it kind of feeds you back. So
And
I love ideas. So
right? The perspectives as well.
Absolutely.
It's just a completely new, perhaps, and a different perspective that we may not have thought of.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about it.
Wonderful. Do you see this also in the students that you teach?
Oh, yeah. I think this is a universal phenomena. And I think students that I teach, definitely. And in my classroom is also a classroom which is an argumentative Indian classroom.
Yeah.
I don't teach only music. We discuss everything around it, everything beyond it. And we argue, we debate, we shout and scream if required. But that's still part of the entire idea that there needs to be critical thinking. There needs to be what I would call dispassionate observance, which is not, you don't personalize an idea. The moment you personalize an idea, you can't have a discussion. So how do you be dispassionate from an idea and look
very
at
Zen-ish.
it? In a way, yes. But I think it's very important to be able to look at something, because our relationship with anything in the world is about my relationship with it.
That's true. That's
so if I don't observe it from my relationship, is there a different observance?
Feels like a very JK-ish thing to say.
It is. I mean, it probably is, because I did grow up from that environment.
Fair.
And I learned questioning from that environment. And therefore, I mean, there is that, I carry forward that kind of a process in a way, right? So I do believe that's important, and I try and practice that in the way I've lived my life.
Yeah.
And I like the classroom to be there, and I like that debate to be there. And
a lot of parallels even to the way we are actually doing it in the classroom, or we are expected to do, or we should be doing it in the classroom, really, right? Because if we're in the business of making sure that the next generation of business
you're in the
leaders
business of business.
Yeah. We're in the business of creating more business, let's put it that way. But the idea is the same. It's a very Socratean way of actually making sure that people are questioning, learning, debating, right? So wonderful, wonderful.
No, but actually this is very interesting, because you said the way your class is right now. How has it changed over the years, right? I mean, how you learned and how you teach now, and what you think a class should be like, or how learning should be. I mean, something.
Yeah, I mean, first, the way I learned. So I learned in what you could call the traditional way. Right. I mean, if that's kind of a stereotypical expression, but I will try it. So in the sense that I learned from mainly 3 teachers. My first teacher was Sitaram Sharma, who was from Andhra Pradesh.
Right.
And he was an old traditionalist. So I learned like a Paka class, and repetition, rigor of that sort, of a certain kind, was very important. There was not much conversation, right? It's a different time too, in many ways, talking the 80s, literally. So, so you just learn, you continue learning, you learn another skill set, you connect the skill set, and then you build on a skill set, right? So skill set laterally and skill sets vertically. That's what you're basically doing. And then you get to a point where you can create a product out of it.
Right.
That's fundamentally what you did. I'm not denying the beauty of it, everything, but there was no thought in that sense. There was a lot of acceptance of what things are.
Right.
And which is true most of our general education system too. It's not unique of just music. Exactly. If you look at how we learn in school generally, there's an acceptance. You start from accepting certain things. So even the notion of questioning, it's just a fluffy thing that we do. Because we can only ask, so we already know what we can ask a question about.
True.
Yeah.
And we already know what we cannot ask a question.
The boundaries, the invisible
everybody
boundaries.
knows.
It's like a programmed system.
So
really.
even questioning is kind of an act. It's a performance, right? For the teacher and the student. My classroom, I didn't ask many questions. I was much younger too. Then I learned from another guru by name Chengal Pranganathan. He was come from a different school. Again, I went there with some specific ideas, and he did something else for me. He pushed me in a manner that nobody had pushed me, creatively. How does one go beyond the limitation that you feel you have? You know? And that's something he did without articulating it in word. He will just say, keep singing. And I am singing the same line, I don't know for how many times. And he'll say, keep singing. He was a very kind man, very soft voice. And I realized that through that process, I was breaking down walls, I was breaking down ideas that I thought I could never do, and then something starts opening up that you never thought existed. So he gave me that. So the last guru I learned from was great musician Shyamagudi Srinivasaya. Now, I learned from when he was towards the end of his life. He was a very different man, and he was young at heart like hell. It's great fun. So I used to go to the house in the morning, we'll chat, he'll sing, he will tell me stories, and then, but he loved to share. And with him, it was pointers. He'll just say something, or he'll say something else. And this incident I'll never forget. I sang in the radio, and I sang a raga, and he heard the radio relay. As soon as it was over, and I come back home, I get a call from him, and he said, picked up the phone, he said, I heard you. And I was like, oh my God. And then he said, don't you know this composition, some composition in that raga? Now, that statement means I sucked in what I sang. And if I knew that composition, I will do it better. But he never said anything of that.
Right.
I said, I don't. He said, come home now. And he taught me the composition. That's all the conversation was.
Right.
So every one of them operated in a different way. But when you start teaching, you always imitate your teacher.
Yeah.
True.
Okay. And that's what I did. And what happens because of that is that you also pick up structures that were placed then. And it's just coming through your voice and you're just replicating that. It took me a while to realize that. And by then I was also changing as a human being, as a person, and my role as an artist and as a person in society also started changing. But I think all of them came together because I was asking questions about identities, about power, about authority, and about language. And I was asking these questions and looking at my classroom and said, what are you doing there? Right? And I think all that together changed the way my classroom was. And I've actually apologized to my students. After a few years, I said, I'm sorry. And I said, no, I don't think that was right. What I did so many years ago, because that's all I knew then. True. I mean, so it changed, and then my classroom was always argumentative. That is my nature also. By nature, I'm a person who will trigger you and say, come on, tell me what you think.
Right.
That's always been there. But to create what I would say an equitable space and to try and lessen the authority of a teacher to the best extent possible, yet maintain the necessary dynamic of learning. It's a kind of a very delicate balance, and all of you would know it's very delicate. So the only difference that happens in art is it's a personal space, right? Here there is a formality of institution that also enables you to draw certain navigates, and here you have no way to navigate.
Right.
So it's a little more tricky.
Right.
But I think that over the years I've learned, I still push my students very hard. I still ask difficult questions. I will ask a question over a question over a question, and try and push that person to that question that they don't want to ask. And that's all my job is. Right. If I get that student to that point and said, I'm done. Now you figure it out.
Right.
So that's what the classroom is like.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. No, thank you for sharing. That's great. You're kind of extending on that. So one of the things that I'm sensing is essentially there's a little bit of a transformation. There's some self-awareness that's coming. So your style of teaching is evolving, which I'm sure happened in your music as well. So talk to us a little bit about your evolution of your creative process, your music itself.
Yeah, I mean, it actually went through dynamic difference. In fact, the first change in me was my music, which even people recognized. Before they recognized my social discourse, the first thing that changed was my music. So if I was going to put a timeline on it, approximately, I think I started thinking very seriously about what I was doing, probably 2001, 2002. And, I had kind of reached the top of the game. Like I was saying yesterday, it was not like I was bored with it. It was not boredom that would let me know. I mean, getting applause is pleasurable. Why would you ever be bored by it? So it was not that. But there was a fundamental query for me is because if I have cracked the skill sets, I know how to perform for the next 30 years of my life. At that point, I was asking this question, why am I singing this music? I know how to sing it. Fine, I can learn new things. I can do new things. Yeah, I can make my voice do things it's not doing that. We can all do it. After a certain point, it's not difficult. And I know how to get appreciation. I know how to get applause. I know how to sing an album. I know. So what the hell are you doing? So I kind of got to a point of saying that, am I really doing art? Or are we just exchanging a habit? Right? It's a cultured habit. Both of us are cultured in that habit. Right? I know what to provide for you. Right. You know what to receive.
Right.
We have now both know what, you know the product, which is me.
There's a contract.
Complete contract.
A comfortable contract.
A very comfortable
and
contract.
It's just habitual. And as long as I provide it for you, you're going to keep coming to me. Right? And then I can say, okay, slight differences here. I can do slight. That's about it. It's just packaging.
Sure.
And that bothered me very deeply. So I said, am I making art? So I said, okay, let me figure out what this art is first. And I started reading old books, treatises, went to scholars. And I was not a researcher by any long shot. So I struggled, but I went through it and I worked. And got involved in some old archival projects and trying to revive sounds from the past, stuff like that. And that completely changed the spectrum of what I thought was the sound body of Carnatic music. The first thing I challenged was the entire notion of the performative. And I said, what is a performance, right? And my challenge to it was, I believe any performative form is one reflection of the form. The performative cannot become the form. If the performance becomes the form, then there's no form. This was my argument.
Right.
And remains my argument. So if you look at classical, any form, actually any form music in that, any form of art, there is one performance structure, performative design that's accepted.
True.
Right? And it is believed to be cohesive. That's just habit. Cohesion is a habit. Okay. So I said first, I don't believe it's aesthetically cohesive. And I'm willing to debate it anywhere. Let's have a discussion. And then I said, if you tell me that the form is dependent only on this, if I throw this performance structure, is the form dead? I said the form has to survive irrespective of this. And this is just a creation of creation of some years. So I also went to the point to say that in fact, I will argue that this performance structure does disservice to the form. So I pushed it to the other side.
The other extreme.
And I said, no, actually it's not even reflective of what the form is. And I argued, saying that these are the reasons why it is not. So this all happened organically, right? And slowly through a period of time, my musical content changed. My performance contents changed. The way I perceived raga changed. This came from multiple sources, right? And that's the first thing that people recognized as being deeply disruptive. And they said, some people felt I was destroying an art form, fundamentally. Actually, this was also kind of scary for me because I was saying that, okay, suppose I go there and find out there's nothing beyond this, then will I sing it anymore? It's also like a self-goal at some level, right? I mean, luckily I found that there's a lot of music beyond the performance. So that changed. But along with it, you realize that you can't speak about art in some abstract, ether. It's happening on terra firma, among people, between people and communities.
Right.
So this conversation is about human beings. And that's when my social discourse began. First began within the community that practices art, but then went on to the larger spectrum. But that's when I was asking questions of my own identity, my gender, my caste, my class, my privileges, and why would somebody listen to sound A but not sound B?
Yeah.
What does preference even mean? What does likes and dislikes mean? What is governing these kind of notions? And then the moment you open that, you're opening yourself to a world of possibilities and learnings.
True.
And I just went by that path.
Super interesting. I just have one question on that. So where does an experiment like Margar Ragam fall in all this?
Interesting. That's a good question.
Especially, I was very fascinated about H. Sridhar's association more than anything else.
Yeah. Sridhar did the sound for it. I mean, he did entirely the sound for it.
Which is very fascinating for me because it's probably one of the first times like a very, very, how do I say, scientific sound engineer comes in.
Oh, yeah.
And tries to change the sound of
No, but
music.
Sridhar was great there. One thing about Sridhar is it was all live sound. The entire concept was live sound. So
I watched it in a theater. Just so
it was fascinating. I think that was Jayendra's project. Jayendra was the director.
Yeah.
And the idea was to say, can we reimagine the visual of the form? It was Jayendra's concept. He said, how we present it, can we completely reimagine it? And I think it was the first foray into something. Now you see everybody having their phones and doing all this. But at that time, nobody even thought about it.
Correct.
And it was, I think, thing about Sridhar is, right, is that he let the natural sound just play.
That's true.
That's a very important aspect.
True.
With all the techie man that he was.
Yes.
I remember during the shoot, he will not allow a cut. He said, just go. Just let it go. So that's very important.
Yeah.
Right? So technology is useless if you don't have a sensitive aesthetic mind.
True.
That is listening directly and not through technological ears.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what Sridhar, and that was his last project. He actually passed away before we released the movie. Very sad. And I remember even when we sat on edits, it was fascinating to sit with him. It was incredible. So Margar Ragam was a visual reimagination. After that, I did another film called One.
Yes.
And of course, now you see everybody doing it in their cell phone. But One was path-breaking for its time because it was completely Atmos sound, and it was done completely in the wild, with just the voice, live sound.
Right.
no mixing.
Right.
So that was also fascinating. Yeah.
No, it's wonderful.
And it's interesting to see where these ideas of combining technology and music, of course, we'll come to that more because we would like to hear a little more about AI, ethics, and
Yeah,
music.
very much.
But even these ideas, I mean, where is the exposure to this, or where did the idea spring from? Because you bring it into a milieu which was not doing it at that point of time.
True. I mean, one thing is I've always been interested in technology in that sense, right? Or science,
Right.
and applied science, which is what technology is anyway in some way. But I think it's also true that if you think of it at a very basic level, every instrument is a technological device.
Absolutely.
Right. So technology has always been there in music making, whether it is, a guitar or a violin or a mridangam, they're all technological devices. So when we say technology today, we are specifically talking about electronic
technology.
That's true.
right? But I think that's again only an extension. I don't want to, I find the problem when we separate the two. Yeah, I can understand in terms of sound processing and digital analog, there is a difference. I get it. But there is a continuity in that. Let's not, I mean, we make a mistake by separating that. I think there's something, I think that is for our own comfort.
Absolutely.
Fair.
Okay.
It's like pre and post.
Yeah,
It
it's
never
not
is.
true. Because the moment you say you're processing something,
It is technology.
irrespective of how you're processing
Of
it,
course.
Yeah.
it is a medium.
It is.
Right.
I am talking directly. I'm talking through whatever. If it is an analog processor or a digital, there is a medium.
Correct.
The moment you've created medium, create an idea of passing sound through something to change it in some manner.
Right.
True.
Okay, so I see digital only as an extension of this. Now, about frequency issues and about what it cuts off is a complicated conversation. Okay, and there are also good and bads to that. I will not entirely go on this. Oh, I want everything in analog or that
Right,
kind of.
right. Right.
I'm not nostalgic in that fashion. So I think that the microphone that came did a dynamic thing. Let's look at the positive. In Carnatic music, before the microphone came, nobody would have been able to hear the violin.
Sure.
Right?
Right.
The violin technique of playing improved because of the microphone. Pre-microphone, imagine, say even during microphone, first there was only the multi-directional mic, usually kept between the vocalist and the violinist, somewhere, pretty much,
Right.
where this
Yes,
mic
this
is,
is.
right? Now, whatever said and done, it'll pick up a majority of us, right? Now, for the audience, the violinist's first perspective is, how do I make myself heard?
Yeah.
So when your objective is to be heard, which is decibel levels, then your technique is geared for sound, which is why, for example, Chaudiya created the 7-string violin. The only reason is he had to be heard by these 300 or 1,000 people. I mean, with the singer belting it out, Mridangam there or Gajira, there's no way it'll be heard, right? Now you have unidirectional mics coming in for every instrument.
Right.
Now the violinist only cares about the music production.
Right.
He doesn't care anymore about whether it's going to be heard.
Heard, yeah.
That changes techniques, focus, the violin's role changes. So we can't ever disregard these wonderful things that happen because technology comes in.
Absolutely.
Right? Of course, fact of dissemination, and that's always
That's
there, but
also
that's
there.
known. But I'm saying these kind of things are also important. For example, longevity of a career of a vocalist.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Without the microphone, nobody is going to be singing till 60. Let's be very clear about it.
Yeah.
Because you strain your vocal cords and the muscles around them so much.
True.
Now the microphone, I can sing till I'm 60, 70 as long as I'm physically able.
Right.
That's the microphone.
Right.
Before, you couldn't hear the mridangam's other end, the bass end.
Yeah.
Correct.
Now you can hear it. So there are a lot of positives that have come out. If you look at the other side, I think the problem, again, we focus the blame on the wrong thing. Human condition is the problem.
It's true for any technology.
It's not technology, right? So, I mean, who draws those lines? Where technology ends, or where technology, you need to draw the line of technological. When will technological support become technological interference, for example?
This for me has been super enlightening, super helpful. I want to round it off with one final kind of thoughts from you in terms of saying, because you spoke about students and your interaction with students, I'm going to come back to it in the end. I'm going to say, with what you've seen in the last 2 days, and I'm sure you've interacted with students outside in multiple other places. And I remember you distinctly saying in the beginning, saying that you think you're more confident than you were about their abilities and where this is going and that the world is going to be a better place. Can you round that off and help us understand, saying, if there are 3 things that you think are really important conversations.
You proved you're a management school, man.
3 things.
3 takeaways.
3 things.
You know why?
Takeaways.
When I'm in a class, I have to round out a class with the 3 things they need to remember. So you're going to help me with 3 things that you think we need to be having an active dialogue about.
You know, so I'll end with this lovely Oscar Wilde aspect of seeing something. It's in an essay that he wrote, or it's a conversation essay, I forgot now. And he makes this statement, and I'm kind of paraphrasing, that art doesn't imitate nature. Nature imitates art. And it's very counterintuitive. It doesn't make sense. So I'll give an example for it, and I think it kind of brings it all together. So suppose you are sitting in the garden every morning in your house, and there's a lot of flowers in front, and there's a pond, and you keep looking at it, have your cup of coffee, and you see what you see. And you go back. Next day, a child in your house or a neighbor's comes there, sits there, and is sketching something, and sketches a frog. And you see the sketch, and then you see the frog. The next day, you look for the frog. The frog was always there. The sketch told you the frog is there. I think that's what education should be. Because we don't naturally observe and learn. Education must be that sketch that tells you, look, there is a frog there.
On that note, can I just say thank you for being here?
Thank you.
And more importantly, for engaging in the dialogue. Because a lot of times when we have these conversations, it becomes a question and answer session, which is super boring. But to actually engage in a dialogue and have a healthy debate.
And we got pushback. We got questioned too.
Which is great.
So it wasn't just us asking the questions or trying to...
It was lovely.
Lovely. Thank you both so much. Thank you, Mridula. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all of this.
Thanks a ton.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Great.
Absolutely.